Let me mute people here. Only just because I hear my echo. All right.
Hey, Mike, before you get started, are you going to record this?
Yeah, I am. I'm actually getting that done. I'm getting that ready now.
Awesome. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so I hope you guys all had a great end of year. I hope that you guys accomplished your goals. I know it was tough. Maybe, hopefully, you guys got really close or surpassed it. I really do hope that you guys surpassed it or got really close to it, or even beat it, or even met it. Sorry. It was a great 2022, all things considered, right? With kind of how rates shot up about 3 to 4% in a matter of 6 months from January to June. You saw rates go the highest that they've gone year over year or within a year, probably ever. So for you guys to still be here, for you guys to still be producing, says a lot about you guys in terms of your willingness to continue to push, even with the market like that. And like I mentioned earlier, a couple minutes ago, I think that 2023 is going to be basically the last 6 months of 2022, maybe slightly better. I think we're going to see that little that continuance, and that feels like a normal market. The last 6 months, even though it was really slow, and I think it was just kind of like we're riding on the highway, and you finally get off, and you hit the main street, and now you're traveling through the roads. It's kind of the same feeling that I got for the last 6 months of 2022, guys. That's a normal market. Okay, we're not 2020, 2021 was abnormal. Right now, we are kind of feeling that normal market kind of going back into realistic market conditions. So we're going to kind of go over some of the news that came out the last couple of weeks first, and then we'll jump into kind of how 2022 ended in terms of rates, kind of how we thought they would, and then what we're thinking for 2023. So the Case-Shiller Home Price Index, which for those of you that don't know, is basically the gold star, the standard for home price appreciation. Okay, so on our Monday Mortgage Minutes, we talk about a lot about home sales, home price appreciation, unemployment, and things like that. So Case-Shiller Home Price Index, they're usually 2 months behind. Everybody else is usually only a month behind. So that reading came out for October. It showed that homes dipped 0.5% that month and still had annual appreciation year over year of 9.2%. Miami is still the top city for home price appreciation at 21% as of October. And so I think that number is still going to be right around the low teens to end the year, December, 18%, 17% in South Florida specifically. And my guesstimate from the beginning of the year or towards, I think it was June, I thought that we were going to be anywhere between 8 to 10%. So we might be there. We might be actually a little bit below 8% in terms of the annual home price appreciation by December. Because if we're at 9.2% in October, I'm assuming that we'll be by around the high 8s in November, and then 7% by December, 7.7 by December is my prediction in terms of what that year over year is. So that would still be a good swing for all of 2022, considering that rates did jump up 3 or 4%, like we mentioned, halfway through the year. So to still end it with 7% of appreciation, us knowing that on an average regular market is 3 to 5%, we're still above that. That's still great news. And even CoreLogic still believes that this year, 2023, we're going to see home price appreciation of 2.8% annually. Okay, so this is good news for the overall market in terms of the annual prediction. However, I think South Florida is going to be above that. I think we will be at 4.5%, 5%. It's still very early to tell, but just because the way that our market is compared to what we're looking at in the U.S. in general, and I do think that we are going to see that 2.8 number is considering some pockets or some areas that were overinflating that still have some correcting to do. Right? We saw there's California, New York. There's still some correction going on in their pricing very heavily, and so I think that some of those spots are going to see depreciation year over year. I do believe so. I just don't think it's going to be in South Florida or in Florida in general, which is a good thing, just because we're still getting people that are continuing to move over here. We're blessed to be in this market, but I do think that we're going to see some sort of depreciation across pockets in the U.S., and that could be newsworthy. So we'll just be on the lookout. Obviously, we'll talk about it on here on Mondays if we do see that kind of coming out. I won't be surprised if we do see depreciation within specific markets, obviously. But as long as within our market we're good, and as long as in general the U.S. housing market is okay, we're going to be all right. Because if we start to see home price depreciation, what's going to happen is that's going to hurt. That's going to hurt the housing market in terms of interest rates and stuff like that. So pending home sales fell 4% from October to November, marking the sixth straight month of declines. Sales are pretty much down 38%, 37.8% is the number, lower than they were in November 2021. So of course, we know this, home prices or home sales are down, but those home prices, that appreciation is still there. So those are the two different things, right? When you're talking about, when you're reading these articles or when your clients are going to you and they're talking about, you know, home sales are down, that's not the same thing as what the actual cost is. We got to keep that in mind. I mean, it definitely helps us, obviously, when we're negotiating with sellers and stuff like that, that we know that they're not getting as many offers as they were before. Last week, the jobs report came out showing increases in job creations, 223,000 as opposed to the 200,000 expected job gains. And even the ADP employment report showed 235,000 jobs created in December compared to the expectations of 150,000. So the difference between the BLS, which is the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and the ADP measures the private sector, right? That you've seen your clients with ADP pay stubs, and they're with more private companies. They're not with local government entities and stuff like that. So that's the difference between the two reports. Both of them came in higher than expected. And so why is this important for us? Because remember that rates, worst enemy is inflation, okay? And so job gains is considered inflationary, right? Because if you're getting jobs, that means that you are going to be spending money, essentially. And so what happened was when that BLS jobs report came out, it came out the day before the ADP report actually came out. And that day we saw rates dip very, very heavily to start the year. They increased very, very heavily to start the year because of the expectation being high, or because the number was actually higher than the expectation. Then the next day, the ADP report came out, and you would assume that with that report being almost 100,000 more than what they expected, the rates would increase even further, but they actually didn't. And the reason is because within that ADP report, it also shows the actual pay increase, right? In terms of how much people were getting paid. And it actually declined 0.3% month over month, basically showing that, yeah, these people are getting hired, but their actual pays are decreasing. So that is deflationary, right? It's kind of weird that the fact that even though there was basically 100,000, 85,000 more jobs created on that ADP report, the fact that they're getting paid less is considered deflationary. And so rates actually improved that day tremendously. I think that we were up like 85 basis points, which is a lot. It's a very, very good day. So that is a little bit confusing, very, very, very intricate, but that's kind of why we go over this stuff here, to kind of lay the groundwork for you to understand when rates are going up and when rates are going down. Talking about employment, one of the most important things that we do kind of go over is your initial jobless claims, right? Which are basically people that file for unemployment for the first time. So you got initial jobless claims, and then you got continuing claims. Continuing claims are people that are still on unemployment. And so this number came in for the week of December 31st. So obviously it's going to show lower than usual, just because it's the holiday season. And that number came in at 200,000. I believe the 4-week average right now is 214,000, meaning every single week, 214,000 people are filing for filing for unemployment for the first time. And continuing claims came at 1.694 million. I think when we first started, we were at the high 1.5s. I think like we were close to 1.6. Now we're close to 1.7. So we're seeing that little by little, that increase over time of continuing claims continues to grow. Because when we started really pushing and talking about initial jobless claims, I think it was like August of last year. And we wanted to kind of see that in a macro scale, right? Not week over week, because that that 200,000 for the week of December 31st is kind of obvious. We want to see what that's going to look like this week, but we want to kind of, unfortunately, see how unemployment increases, because the reason why is as soon as unemployment continues to increase, which right now it hasn't, then the Fed will decide when they're going to pivot. Okay. Right now, the Fed is continuing to up their Fed funds rate, and they're going to up it again this month. And they're deciding whether it's going to be 25 basis points or 50 basis points. It's because they haven't seen basically the crack that they want to see, which is unemployment rising, the stock market kind of falling. They need us to go into that recession before they start to pivot. And since they haven't seen that yet, they've considered continuing to raise their Fed funds rate. And for those of you who don't know, Fed funds rate does not directly correlate with mortgage rates, which is why mortgage rates are still doing pretty decently with the fact that those Fed funds rates are being increased, right? However, we still don't want them to continue to increase, because they do create what we call volatility in the market. And so with that volatility, they're basically like, they're going, basically everything is nice and still, and they're just coming in and just muddying the water. It's kind of what they're doing. And so that will essentially affect us if they continue to increase the Fed funds rate, because the market is expecting one thing and they're giving us another. So it's not just because that Fed funds rate is at 4% means that interest rates are going to be at, 7, 8, 9, 10%. No, they're not the same thing. Fed funds rate is money that is borrowed overnight. Mortgage rates are more long-term, and they flow more through bonds and US Treasuries and more long-term money. The problem is that long-term money gets scared when that short-term money is also being messed with as well. So that's the news for the past 2 weeks, kind of just to catch us up. I think that for 2022, in terms of rates, we ended pretty much what we thought we did, right? We expected November, December to be good for us because of those inflation readings, and they actually were. That's when we've been seeing rates kind of dip since then. Let me see if I can pull up what I was looking at. Yeah, let me share screen here. Screen one. Let's see. Let's go back from May. So you'll see this graph. These are actual mortgage rates. So for those of you guys that are vets to Monday Mortgage Minute, you know pretty much how this works. The higher it goes, the lower interest rates go. The lower it goes, the higher interest rates go. And so we saw from pretty much the beginning of the year, this is around May, we kept seeing that downtrend up until around November, which is what we predicted. Late October-ish took another dip, and then November, it's kind of just been kind of going up. The reason is because mortgage rates, their worst enemy is inflation. It's not anything else that's going on right now. And so as inflation comes down, you're going to see interest rates go down as well. Let's think about it as a long-term investor. If you're going to be putting your money into something that's long-term, why would you put it into bonds if inflation is at 10%? Or what it was before, 9%, 10%, doesn't make sense for you to do that, because those returns on long-term money, if it's 3%, let's say with the US Treasury at 3%, that doesn't make sense for you. By the time you actually collect on that money, whether that be 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, at that 3% rate, inflation has already increased 10%. So that's the thinking when it comes to long-term money. So when we're talking about mortgages and mortgage rates, you need to think about and consider the long-term effect of it, not that short-term, and what that is for investors. So that's why inflation is such a big key for mortgage bonds. And you're seeing here today, we're actually having a really good day. That premium's at 1.45. So if I was to guess, rates today would probably be anywhere at around 6.5 to 6.75 without points. Or if there are points, they're very minimal, 0.5%, 1%. That's where rates would be on a good bar, 720, 740. 15%, 10, 15% down. You may get closer to about 6.25, paying like a point and a half or something like that. But that's where rates are going to be at more or less today. So as this continues to go up, you'll continue to see rates come down, just kind of normal. So like I said, last year, I hope that you guys, or like I asked, I hope that you guys really met your goals or got close to them. I kind of want to know from you guys what you guys are considering for this year. at least one thing from some of you guys is that you're going to be considering doing that you didn't do last year to kind of help you with your business, because I it's not like 2020, 2021. Your phone's not going to be blowing up. You're not going to be going out to get your mail, and the mail person is going to be asking you if you could sell them a house. It's not going to be the way that the market is. It's going to be some work that's going to come behind that. So I'm kind of curious to know what you guys are considering doing in terms of sales. I think we were in a class the other day, and one of the things that they said is that you need a transaction coordinator as a realtor. And I think I told you guys that before, that you need to start hiring people, right? Not consider yourself self-employed, but as a business person. I think starting with a transaction coordinator this year would be a good thing, so that way you can get that time away from that to be able to continue to prospect and sell. But what's some of the things that you guys are considering doing? Go ahead, Narlian.
Well, I'm a short sale and foreclosure specialist, so I'm going to be focusing on that.
Awesome. Do you buy like a list? Do you look online?
No, on the MLS, I use the iMap.
Okay.
I took a class and they show you how to break down and you can find different things. So I'm using that as my tool.
Nice. Okay. Well, that's a good one. How about you, Nikki? I saw you on mute.
Hey, Mike. Yeah, so for me, hold on one second. For me, I'm definitely hiring an assistant because I need the help with showing and being in multiple places at once. I already have the transaction coordinator down pat, and then definitely looking to try to become more listing. So definitely cold calling. I realize that I don't want to cold call, so I'm going to see if I can I'm going to look into someone that's open to doing it for me. Just leveraging people that can do the things that I don't have time to do or want to do. I'm definitely implementing that this year. And then definitely getting in front of more people. So that means by even content as well as these workshops.
Perfect. And here's a key for you guys too. Like Nikki, she doesn't like to cold call. I would suggest interviewing VAs specifically just to kind of pick up the phone and call for you. I have he's a real estate investor. He's a good friend of mine, very successful, and basically flipping is what he does. But he has somebody that is essentially that he pays that's out of the country, $7 an hour, $6 an hour, to basically just cold call and set up appointments for him. And he gives them the list, and they basically just punch out calls all day. And then that conversion, obviously, it's not going to be as high as if you do it, but it saves you time. And if you're talking about 100 leads a day, depending on how many people you want them to call, they will call all 100 of those people, and you can track that. And even if you're getting a conversion of 1%, you're talking about one listing appointment a day, and 1% is a very low conversion, right? You can do 0.5%. You're talking about 15 listing appointments in a month. So when you start to consider these things, it makes it worthwhile, because out of those 15 listing appointments, let's say you only get 3, right? That's a very low conversion rate as well. But one of those pays for that VA for the whole year. And then you have 2 more as profit. And you do that per month. Now you're talking about 30 listings, 35 listings for the year. So you can consider that as well too. You don't like to cold call. If that's not something for you, you can hire somebody to do that, right? When you're talking about budgeting, you guys need to consider a marketing budget. I have a marketing budget, and I'm W-2. That means that it comes straight out of my pocket. It doesn't go towards my business expense or anything like that. But I have a budget that I use for marketing every single quarter, specifically towards marketing things or towards prospecting and things like that. And you guys should consider that as well. Hey, if I'm paying this person $7 an hour, that conversion, right, should make sense for you. But if they only get one deal for you a year, it already paid for itself, right? Because that person's probably going to cost you 20 grand for the year, something like that. So just something to kind of consider. Same thing with that transaction coordinator thing, right? What you're good at as realtors is marketing, usually talking to people face to face, more warm calls. If you don't like that cold calling, if you don't like the paperwork stuff, those are things that you should be passing off to someone else. At least, obviously, one at a time, right? One thing at a time, but just figure out one thing that you're not good at that you can hire somebody else to do. If you're within a brokerage, you can obviously somebody that's that's a beginning realtor, you can have them do those tasks for you, and so that way you're not paying hourly, you're splitting that commission as well. Hey, Andrew, you got a question? Hey, Andrew, you there? I saw him raise his hand.
No. That was an accident. Sorry about that.
Okay. All right. No worries, brother. Lorraine said that she got really close to her goal last year. That's awesome, Lorraine. I got pretty close as well. Pretty close, but no cigar for me. Anybody else? Anybody else want to talk about what they're considering to do this year?
Hi. So I have been reaching out to buyers who were kind of shut out during the bidding war, the bidding wars that was going on in 21 and 22, and getting them back in, because letting them know it's safe to come back outside. And if they qualify for any kind of grant funds, like I think this is a good time that we can probably get some grant buyers in since the market has slowed down. So that's what I've been focusing on the past month or two.
Perfect. Yeah, those people that couldn't buy because they were getting priced out. Right now is a good time. I've been saying it, it's always a good time to buy, but I think for first-time home buyers right now is a good time for them to find a house that they like as long as they can afford it, because they're going to get the house that they want. They're going to be able to negotiate some closing costs, and then later on this year, maybe in a year or two, I'm not going to even say later on this year. A lot of loan officers are going to be talking about refinancing in 6-12 months. Look, we're not going to see home price appreciation. Remember, consider when you're refinancing, you need to have enough appreciation to put those closing costs in there as well. I don't think that we're going to see that. We may. That's not the route that I take. I want to be realistic with the client and say you may be able to refinance within a year and a half. But to say that you're going to be able to close on that property and refinance in 6 months if rates go down, I just don't think they're going to have that appreciation. So what happens is if they don't and they still want to refinance, they got to pay that out of pocket. So just keep that in mind. But I still do think that it's a good time for first-time home buyers just because they're not able to refinance this year. They're getting into that property that they want, and they just got to stick it out. And for us, we're still doing the 1.0 buy down, right? As long as you're doing a standard FHA conventional VA loan, we're still doing the 1.0 buy down. So we're protecting you for the first year anyway if you're not able to refinance. Let's see here. This year, I plan to partner with services that can feed me leads and go back to what works, making calls. Yes. Prospecting, or phone call to phone call or face to face. That's always going to be the best route. If you guys are considering door knocking, stuff like that. That's the stuff that people are not doing. Consider that within your budget as well. Definitely the goal is being in more rooms, connect with more investors, and network with those who are still actively investing while the market is shifting. Janice, if you are not part of NAREB, you should join. You can get with me, Lorraine, or Alicia, especially if you're talking about getting in more rooms. We've got a bunch of investors within NAREB. You can go to our meetings and start connecting with other realtors and stuff like that, and really be able to branch out. That would be a good first step for you. Investors is one good way to go as well. Prospects, expired listings at FSBO. Yeah, that's all good stuff. I think I'm going to send it to you guys. I got to look for it. Kind of your business plan just for you, very similar to what I sent you last year in terms of what your hourly is and stuff like that. We're going to send you one similar for you guys to be able to kind of put your numbers in and kind of figure out what are the things that you're going to be doing this year in order to get to whatever that goal is that you have in mind. Okay. I use it for mortgages. I use it more so it's easier for me to sit down and really think about these things while I'm doing it. Even though we're human, I'm not going to look at it every single day of the year. I may look at it one time a month, one time a quarter, which is fine. But the time that you take to kind of sit down and really think about your marketing, your marketing strategy and your prospecting strategy, what you're going to do, the more realistic it becomes to kind of do it, as opposed to just thinking about these different things. We all have a bunch of ideas, and we sit down and we say, hey, what are the 5 things that I want to do in order to help me improve my business? And you kind of write it down. You go through the steps of it because that breakdown has all of that. you'll be able to, your mind absorbs it better, right? Any other questions? We are at 10:30. I'm really excited to be back on this call. I like these. I like that we get together. Thank you guys for giving the information that you guys did to the other realtors in here. There's a lot of new people from what I see, a lot of first timers. So thank you so much for coming out. We hope that we see you next week, Monday as well at 10 a.m. We do these, we go over the market. Last year, we predicted that rates were going to start coming down November, December. If you were with us at that time, you know that happened. If you weren't, ask anybody else in here. We really give out good information, but anything else that you guys need, let me know. We'll be here all week. If not, we'll see you next Monday.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you,
all.
Mike.
Have a good week.
All right, thanks, Mike.
Have a great week. Always a pleasure.
All righty.